I think the most important thing to do is customer interviews at the beginning.
Yeah.
To just get the feedback of the market. Just don't stay in your room and develop something nobody needs. So just go out and ask people about if they're gonna use it. And if you have that feedback, then you can still go back and code it or whatever. But asking people is the most important thing to do, I guess.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Startup Stories, the podcast that brings you your weekly entrepreneurship education and startup training by Europe's most inspiring founders. This episode brings us together with Nicola and Fabian from Joineer, a startup that has made it its mission to change the future of human resources and increase engagement amongst teams and employees. According to a worldwide study, the percentage of adults who work full-time for an employer and are engaged at work, meaning they are highly involved in and enthusiastic about their work and workplace, is just 15%. And that's a challenge Joineer wants to tackle. I hope this conversation will bring you as much value as it did for me. Enjoy! Welcome to the podcast. Nice to meet you. We haven't met before. Maybe you can share a little bit who you are, your name, what did you study, and what are you doing now? What's the startup we're talking about today?
Okay, thank you very much for inviting us to your podcast. My name is Nicola. I'm one of the 3 co-founders of startup Joineer. Before I decided to found something by my own, I worked in different advertising companies as well as a big corporate. And I studied business communication at the HWZ in Zurich, and that's also the place where I met my dear friend and co-founder Fabian. And yeah.
Yes, my name is Fabian. As Nico said, I studied also communications. That's where it all started with Joineer. Nico came to me with a good idea. At this time, I worked in a small family office. Where we furnished offices, we made concepts for office design, and I was doing sales and concepts there. Mm-hmm. Yes, and in 2016 we had our first idea, and everything with Joineer started.
Nice. What was the initial idea, and how did you find it, or how did you?
Well. I always was a person who had this entrepreneurial spirit in his body, in me. So I always came up with different ideas. Once I wanted to found a online shop for natural soaps. Yeah. And Fabian was always the sane part or the more rational part of us. And he said that it's not going to work out. There are also already several. And once I came up with this idea of matching people with jobs based on their soft skills. And that was the first time he really said that this might work out, and we should focus on that idea. And that's what we did. That was the initial idea, what we started. But well, now we pivot a little bit, and now we're doing something different. But basically this matching soft skills was the first idea.
Did that come out of a frustration of your own story? Because we have talked about this concept or idea, or we also discussed that soft skills are so important, but now you just in the job description you just see the hard skills. What skills do you bring? How did you come to that idea?
It's a good question. I don't really know. I just was brainstorming about ideas, and I thought that this soft skill thing is very important, and it's getting more important in today's society, where the employee is in the center, in this human-centered world. So I think I just started brainstorming about this topic, and then I thought it could be a nice idea to just meet people who have the same mindset and work with them. And if you all have the same mindset, then it's probably easier to work and be successful also economically. Mm. That was my idea, but it wasn't that easy actually.
Yeah. So what did you do? You came together. What what happened between then and today?
Yeah, the first step was with this idea of the soft skill matching. We made a small concept, and one of our teachers at HVZ was Max Meister. He's one of the founders of the Swiss Startup Factory. So we made this short concept, 2 or 3 sides, wrote down what we think, what our aim is, and we presented it to him on a table in the cafeteria. And he was like, that's exactly what is missing, for example, in the startup environment, because especially at startups, soft skills are very important to work together. That everybody's on the same page, that you share the same vision, that you have the same goals. And he was actually quite interested in our idea, said that we should put some more work in it and present it at the accelerator program of the Swiss Startup Factory. And that was the next step. And we presented and we got a place there.
Cool.
Which was quite unexpected because they really roasted us at the end of the presentation.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and at the end we've been 1 out of 3 startups who successfully passed this accelerator program. But after that we just felt that it's too difficult to measure soft skills because there are several problems. One of it is that we have a huge lack of talents in the Swiss market.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just add another filter, this soft skills evaluation on it, then you might never find a fitting applicant.
Yeah.
And the second one is, of course, that it's people act differently in different situations.
Mm.
So they might lie in this evaluation test because they just want to fit the stereotype of a top sales guy or whatever. So it just was too difficult.
Yeah.
So we pivoted a little bit in search for different ideas in the same field.
Yeah, and the main reason also was that we realized that companies should start in the company and not at the onboarding process to like build up engagement, to look at the soft skills, etc. Because especially for big companies, they have a huge workforce, and in our opinion it's much more valuable to look after your existing workforce than to invest a lot of resources in looking for new people.
Yeah.
So I mean, everybody tells it, everybody knows it, but actually in the real world it's not happening enough, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That companies really focus on their existing workforce, and that's also a main reason why we pivoted and put our focus in the existing workforce.
All right. And what was the conclusion of this process? Like, where are you now? Like, where did it lead you to? What is the product now?
Well, the product now is nowadays companies reach out to their workforce once a year in an employee survey, and we just believe that that's not good enough for today's society because there's digitalization, globalization all over. So it's more important to have a solution which is closer to the employee, and that's what we do basically. So what we do is Pulse like employee survey. This is an app who reaches out to the workforce more often, who's very playful and fun to fill it out, and most importantly it's just a fraction, it just takes a fraction of time to fill it out, because classical approaches you need to answer 60 or more questions and it takes you more than an hour to fill it out. So it's an easier approach.
Yeah.
And we believe that employees will like this solution better.
Yeah, I remember we worked together, and I remember our employee questionnaires. I think I did it the first time or two times, and then I asked, "Are you doing this too?" And he's like, "No." Okay, that's good. I'm saving an hour now per month or whatever it was.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah. But was it in a corporate or?
Yeah, it was a big corporate. It was like a Stimmungsbarometer,
that was
asking how are you doing. And I didn't feel like they cared anyways.
That's a problem, exactly. I mean, they ask hundreds of questions. They ask every topic, and you have the feeling after you fill it out that it doesn't change anything anyways.
Right.
So, and this is completely a wrong approach to this very important topic, that you have the feeling that your inputs, that your needs count for the company.
Yeah.
And that's the basic product.
I tried out your product before you sent me the new login, but it was still with these little figures. You know, you could. It was 10 questions, I think it is, or
it's 10. Yeah,
it's 10 questions, and you can give answers from 1 to 6 or bad to good, and it's always a little figure that's either sad or going to happy. So it's quite entertaining, much better than what we have. Yeah.
That's what we hope.
Yeah.
Actually, you can decide how many questions you ask. We always you shouldn't ask more than 10.
Yeah.
That's our main belief, because if you ask too many questions, people get annoyed.
Yeah.
So better less than 10, and it depends a little bit about which questions you ask, and you can decide in which interval you ask the questions. So it's a process. You ask questions, people answer the questions, and they should discuss the inputs
afterwards. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you also advise the HR departments in what questions they should ask?
Yes, we do, but that's a little bit complicated. Because we need to visit them, and we want to be like a tech startup who can make sales online. But at the moment, for our lightest customers, we just meet them, and then we talk about the question they could possibly ask. And that's how we do it at the moment.
Yeah, we have a psychological advisory board, which is put together of psychologists and behavioral economists.
Yeah.
These two mindsets ask different kinds of questions, and our approach is always more on the behavioral economic side, because it's more straightforward. Psychology is more asking the same question 10 times in a different way to have a reliable answer later. And we have the psychological advisory board. We also work with an agency which challenges our questions, so that really our support for the companies is valuable.
Yeah, that was one question I was going to ask later. What's the science behind your solution? Why is it better? But so that's
this is one approach, and the other thing is our scientific approach is feed forward. It's out of positive psychology, and we frame everything in the tool to be positive, solution and future oriented. So it should not be a complaint box like, oh, this is shit and this is shit, but it should be, in my opinion, it would help if you have a question, you always, and if you have something that is not perfect in your opinion, you have to think how you would make it better. So it's really about solution-oriented inputs, and not about letting off steam.
Yes. What companies are you target, or did you start targeting in the beginning, and what's your scope now? Is it like big ones, or is it startups, or?
First we focused on HR company, or just the department of HR, but then we felt like that it's more about the person who is interested to use that tool. So now we're working with people in innovation sections, we're working with HR of course, but also with people from our social network we know who have management positions and who just said that they're going to try this out. So these were like our early adopters, but also very important people or companies in change processes, where it's really important that you feel the vibe of the workforce and you get an instant feed forward from your colleagues.
Okay. So now you have small to big. It's really, there's no.
We work with startups as well as big Swiss corporates and a big Swiss bank. So it's a topic interesting for every company, I guess.
You just talked about like inside of the company there's different departments you kind of target, right? Sometimes it's the HR, you talked about innovation departments or other leading positions. Is there a certain type of person or a certain type of role that you are trying to convince and to use a solution?
Normally we really target the HR chef because it's an HR topic.
Right.
So that's our main target group. But I mean, it's even more interesting if you have a line manager who decides. I mean, an HR is always like, okay, it's very interesting. I'm gonna communicate it to the departments. If they like it, they can do it, but they don't have to because I can't tell them you have to do it. But if you have a hands-on line manager who says that this is cool, I'm gonna do it with my people. Let's start tomorrow. This is a very interesting approach for us.
Our first case was a friend of our co-founder David, who's working for a big Swiss bank, and she just said that she's gonna use it, and now we're going to scale it within the company.
Yeah.
So she wasn't really management. She wasn't really in management.
No,
so she said it's a cool idea. We're gonna try out.
Yeah. And how do you measure the success of? I mean, she tried it now. How is she convincing, or how are you convincing her? Bosses or other people in the company.
I think the good thing with Feed Forward is that you get instant information, and this instant information helps the management to improve the workplace. So I think if you only carry out the employee survey only once, you get instant added value.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's super important that it's not you need to use it 6 months and then you will see an increase in whatever, but really do it once and it's already
No, that was
success.
the feedback we got also from a startup who used our tool.
Yeah.
So
how's your sales process? Because you say you target HR usually. How long does it take for you now to acquire a new company?
It depends a little bit. I would say month, maybe 2 or 3 months. So we would send mails. We are doing cold calls. We have quite the classical approach, and then if someone is interested, we prepare a meeting. We present the startup, our approach of Feed Forward. Then we would give them a test login. They would make a test, present it internal, and then we start a test. We start a long-term test.
Yeah.
So this would be the approach, and the test is mostly paid already.
Already paid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, how does it work? Like, what do companies pay for? Kind of, is it like just the basic thing, or per user, or?
I think.
Well, the pricing is an important topic for
Yeah.
us. We're still working a little bit out what way we go, but it's actually monthly per user fee. So you just pay for the user who really use it.
Yeah.
So it's quite nice if you actually get an HR boss of a corporation
Exactly.
signing up for it. So you
Exactly.
get the whole.
You will get
company.
a discount if 1,000 people use it. So you won't pay less than just 100.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Cool, man.
And how are you doing that with the pricing?
We're still figuring it out.
We
a
have-
little bit.
How are you
have,
trying to figure it out?
Our start is 5 francs per user per month.
Mm-hmm.
So this is our start. But I mean, we are a young and kind of flexible startup.
So it's
We
going
s-
up. It's
we s-
gonna go up, guys. Get it now. Sign up now.
Exactly. No, I mean, we speak to the people. If a HR boss says, "Okay, I'm coming with 1,000 people," but they always calculate. Okay, if I bring like 100, it's 500 per month, it's 6,000 per year. But if I bring 1,000, it's 60,000 per year. I cannot pay 60,000. So yeah, we talk to them.
Yeah.
At the moment, but we're gonna make it more fixed soon.
Yeah.
Yes.
In 14 hours. So you have 14 hours to sign up. Sure. So what are the things you're trying to do to find the right price?
Well, we compared our competitors.
Yeah.
Which is the look on how they do it, and which is the note that down or write that down. And now we're going to do a workshop in the next few days, and yeah, trying to figure out.
We also did customer interviews and asked what they were willing to pay. We also made offers to try out how far we can go. Yeah, but I mean, that's a good thing if you are a startup. You always can talk to the people. They will tell you, come on, think about it, come back to me tomorrow with another paper or something. And most of the time they're not like, that's very
never
bad.
come back.
Yeah, we are never going to talk again.
Yeah. And I think we also want to remain flexible a little bit because it really depends on the customer. If there's a bank, they can pay more than an NGO, for instance, and also a startup. So, yeah, we're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. On US websites, I often see, if you're a school or an NGO, contact us. We're gonna make a special price for you. Yeah. Cool. What do you think? Looking back, what was your biggest challenge? Maybe you had individual challenges that were a bit different, or one common one.
Well, I think the biggest challenge was as we finished this accelerator program, where we got support from mentors, where we got financial support, and as we have our own office here, then we lost the vibe a little bit from our mentors supporting us every day, from showing them that we're gonna be the next unicorn or whatever. So I think that was a huge hurdle for us at that time after the accelerator.
Yeah, for me it was a little bit a different thing. In the accelerator, everything was superlative. We're gonna find an investment after 3 months. You're gonna go to have so many customers. But a lot of talking and and to find out that our product, for example, is not rocket science, and we know that it's about people. You have to have this mindset. You have to believe in it, and the process we start with our product has to continue in a team. If you just use our product, I spoke to customers. They said, I think with asking questions I cannot engage my workforce. And then I must say, okay, let's just stop talking to each other. Because if you think that our products is just about asking questions, we are not going to find a way together. Yeah. And so we know that we are not doing rocket science like, I don't know, an ETH spin-off who does cancer
research and cures.
Exactly. And investors are not like jumping into our door every day and say, I want to invest so much money. And to find a way around this knowledge, to see, okay, we have to show that it works, we have to work hard, we have to work long, we have to invest our own money, we have to invest our own time if we want to continue. I think that was the main part.
Okay. Yeah, and it probably still is. I mean,
it still
you're
is,
still working hard.
But I mean, now we got
getting traction
into a place
we earned a little bit of money, so it's better now than it's been half a year ago. So.
and I think now it's gonna scale. Yeah.
What did like you had to? I mean, you came up with the idea, and at some point you had to convince yourself that it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you convince yourself that this solution is actually better than like it's actually better for the companies than?
Well, for me it was Fabian approving the idea for the first time. And also the investor, I mean, Max Meister, our mentor and investor as well from the Swiss Startup Factory, said that this is going to work out and this is a great idea. So I think that was also very...
For me, I completely believe in it. I completely believe that in every company there is so much potential unused, which has to be brought to light. I mean, I know so many people who go to work and do not really have an impact and do not really see a value in their work. And therefore I think you have to try everything to bring this to light. And first of all, I strongly believe in this. And the second thing is, since around 10 years I do sales. Before I sold furniture and made concepts, and that was really hard. And actually, we really have a lot of success with our topic.
Yeah.
Companies know they do have to do something in this area. They know they want to get agile. Everybody speaks about agility, digitalization, and so on. Everybody speaks about it. Many companies do not really know how to walk in the right directions, but they want to do something. So you just have to support them with the right thing to do, like this small step. And we support them with a tool to make one step in the right direction to start this process. Yeah. And therefore I'm completely convinced that we are also at the beginning of this.
That's true. It's a huge market. HR tech is a huge market. And I think it will evolve over the next few years even more. So.
Yeah. Already it's like wie sagt man auf Englisch? Verdichten.
Yeah, it's getting more dense with other startups or
yes.
Yeah, I mean, our first idea after quitting was something in that direction, and we read it was the Global Workplace report from the Gallup organization, and over 85% of people are not engaged at work.
Exactly.
That's a big problem.
That's our Bible.
Right? It's incredible.
One of the first things we always say in every pitch.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I mean,
it's crazy.
And still, most companies do not care. It's crazy.
Yeah. They're just doing well in Switzerland.
Yeah, but still, I mean, every study shows that you increase productivity, profitability.
Yeah, it's true.
It's huge.
By so much, yeah.
Possibilities are huge, that's why I say it needs a lot of sensibilization, and that's why I think we are at the beginning of this process.
It's very intangible, right? It's not you do this one thing and then you'll have 500,000 revenue or less cost or whatever.
Exactly.
It's intangible.
And if you start with it, it probably first drops down.
Yeah.
Because you start a process where in like conservative cultures or hierarchies, you will have density. Like these old school leaders are not very happy if everybody is asked what's your opinion about this topic, or how would you do it, or what do you think we could do better. So maybe at the beginning it gets a little bit more complicated until it goes up, far up.
So that means that it's quite, I would see that it's quite hard to sell this, right? Because it's not like I give you that, you get that, right? What is the strategy? Like, how do you...
People do not see the return on investment directly.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more complicated to really convince them. But if they know that employee engagement is a huge topic, then it's really easy. We just go pitch and they say, it's a great idea, let's do a pilot. So it depends on the company. And of course there are companies where we can discuss 5 hours and they won't buy our stuff, our product. So but I think the mindset, there's also a new generation of management coming up and they know that it's very important. So we're at the right time at the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you figured out what companies are on the side, like you can spend 5 hours and don't do anything, and the companies that are, like, are there any characteristics?
Are there?
These
I don't
companies?
really think.
Size,
I could say,
industry.
for example, governmental organizations are very often stuck in conservative structures. And they really like to keep it the way it is, and are not willing, and they don't need to. That's different. They don't need to go forward. There are always some people who would like to, but like the surrounding is very stuck in the way they did it for 20 years. And so governmental organizations are very hard. Also, I would say
Insurance.
I would say like construction companies, like kind of engineer companies, have this very, I would say maybe, what's the right word, macho cultures.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where, this HR, soft skills, fühlst me stuff, we don't need that. If I have a problem, I'm going to tell my boss, or the boss says, no, they have to work, don't have to talk. It's so funny.
I really hear that. Yeah.
But I can imagine.
So if I wouldn't acquire, for example, construction companies for my first customer.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The gender plays or might play a role, and also the age of it, or the type of company. You said insurance as well is also.
Yeah, we just talked to a couple of them, and none of them are our customers.
Yeah.
And that's the result. Probably a sign.
I can imagine, yes.
But gender. I think it's easier to talk to women
About feelings.
about feelings, of course. About
But it's really
about
that in the end.
That's what you like to do.
It's really.
No, I don't know. You're the sales guy, so.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't really. Yeah, it's interesting. I never thought about it that it's a gender thing, but yeah, you're right. I mean, if we talk about construction, it's probably a very.
Or have you ever seen a construction woman?
Yeah,
And most people in HR are women, so.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
they are. They are
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, it's also, there is one point is very interesting for companies, because people who do not work at a workstation in an office, they often do not have that much access to these people, so it's harder, for example, to send them a survey. And we develop mobile first and so on.
Yeah.
So it would be very interesting, like for factories, for construction,
remote,
etc., to work with our tool. But also there is, or truck drivers or whatever. But maybe not my right.
Yeah, that's nice. What if you were? I mean, you are speaking to future entrepreneurs, also active entrepreneurs. What's your biggest learning that you would share?
I think the most important thing to do is customer interviews at the beginning.
Yeah.
To just get the feedback of the market. Just don't stay in your room and develop something nobody needs. So just go out and ask people about if they're gonna use it. And if you have that feedback, then you can still go back and code it or whatever. But asking people is the most important thing to do, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
How many did you ask? More or less.
Over this 1.5 year, more than 100 probably. We talked
But
to a lot of people.
Yeah.
it was actually in the process of building the tool in our case, but yeah, until now it's been more than.
We waited a little bit too long with this customer interview stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
So we had to redo some features, but just ask.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're doing the same right now for one of our ideas. So,
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so important.
are you joining in on that learning, or do you have
Sure, this
an
is
additional one?
very important, and another thing is always the team. I mean, we 3 founders, when we started, we wanted to build a tool, a digital tool, and nobody of us was able to program. So
Oh, I know that situation.
so we worked with external developers from India for a long time, and at this moment I cannot imagine anymore how this worked out. Seriously. And yeah,
Took a while, yeah.
do really take care about the team, like who you work with, which skill set do you have. Yeah.
So get someone with those skills, like development skills, on the team early on.
Yes. Yeah. If you have a digital tool,
You need someone who can build it, right?
yeah. In our case, it was so often like the point where we couldn't like go forward because we were stuck. We have a lot of Salesforce communications,
Business as well.
business. There we can we can work all night. We can work on the weekend. We can make change. We can go further. But if we cannot keep up with the product,
Yeah.
We've just been stuck.
we are just stuck. So
Okay. Yeah.
that's a big problem, and we should
See that.
really try to be able to move everything more or less at the same pace.
Yeah, definitely. If you build a product, you have to have someone who can build it. And
Looking back, we've been
And we also had
stupid.
very interesting
No, but
talks.
that's what you learn
Building
right on the way.
a
It's fun,
digital
yeah.
tool without coding skills isn't the best idea.
You learn on the
But
way.
we learned, and
Yeah.
we're still using it. So.
And you have new friends in India now. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
And now we have
Yeah.
our coding here, so
And
Now you have one,
I
yeah.
mean, we built a lot of know-how intern.
Yeah.
David, who is not here, by now he knows a lot about technology. When we started, he didn't know a
Yeah.
lot about technology, so this is very important. And what's also very interesting is that we somehow managed to survive to this point with
Yeah.
that. And to find know-how, someone who's willing to participate and
build
to
it.
take this part.
Definitely.
So I'm out of questions.
We should,
Just for the we have the last part. Our
Exactly.
standard
we
three
basically
questions.
already jumped into it because he basically just rephrased the questions we haven't even asked yet.
That's right.
Looking back, I
That's
think I was
not
stupid
cool at
because
all.
our question is like looking back, what would you do differently? Is there anything else than not having a CTO on board?
well, I still would found my own company because I have this entrepreneurial spirit in me, and I think I would do it again. So just probably this
These
missing developer skills, but otherwise it's just I would do it again.
Yeah, me too. I mean, yeah, it's a very difficult question. I mean, yeah, you always take a lot of learnings with you, and probably we would do a lot different if we start over again. But I think to come to the place that we are now, I would do it the same way. Yeah.
How do you see, or are you hopeful for the future of HR? I mean, you said there's more and more startups in it, but we also know that it's so important, right? Are you hopeful for that area, for HR,
Yes,
for the future?
I'm 100% convinced that it's going to be even more important in the next few years.
Yeah.
So definitely.
Yeah, I mean, there are many upcoming challenges, like everybody talks about thousands of jobs which will be replaced by machines, thousands of people which won't have jobs in future, but a small part of specialists who everybody will compete about. So I think it's going to change a lot, and it's going to be very important to look after your people.
Yeah.
And that's what companies didn't do enough and still don't do enough, in my opinion. And that's why I'm very convinced.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, companies coming from the 20th century, right? You had very specialized physical labor, and if you look at the jobs you need in the 21st century, or with automation, it really goes into very soft skill jobs. Empathy, critical thinking, creativity. So I mean, yeah, we've read a lot also about that, and totally
and
agree.
Also, everybody you read about the generation who's coming up, feedback, immediate response, everything, and like successful startups, they just have a different work culture, and it's proven that they perform much better.
Yeah.
So in the long haul, it has to change to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, the most valuable companies are tech companies that were created not that long ago. So yeah, definitely. So our last question is, what's the last book or video or blog post that you've seen and that you'd recommend to future entrepreneurs?
Well,
or the best one?
The best one, I like 0 to 1 from Peter Thiel.
The book, yeah.
And I just found it inspiring how he talked about his failures and his success. So I could definitely recommend that one.
Yeah, he talks in that book, right? If I remember correctly, not how to create any startup, but one that's really disruptive. He says, I think if you create just like a normal startup, so that you can go 1 to N, but going from 0 to 1, really changing something completely. I read it as well. It's super good book.
He cannot read, that's the problem.
Exactly. No, I read books of Yuval Noah Harari at the moment.
Is that the Sapiens?
Yes, exactly. Sapiens, Homo Deus, and the newest one is about recommendations he gives. It's not
the future, right? He talks about.
Yes, the first one is about like how we got to where we are. The second one is about like what it's probably gonna be in the future, and the third one is about how we should take care of this. And I mean, it's not. He's not. How to say it in English? People see it also critic what he writes, but I think it's easy to understand and it's very interesting, like to just get a picture of who we are and where we're going to be. I mean, he says, for example, that probably in the future there are going to be superhumans with, I don't know, like robo arms, very strong, and I don't know. And he says it's not a question if it comes, but when it comes, and what we are gonna do with it, or how we are gonna make sure that not a small elite can take profit of it. So this is what I read at the moment, and I think it's very interesting.
I've gotten many recommendations for his books, Sapiens and Homo Deus. What's the one you're reading?
At the moment it's Sapiens. I read Homo Deus first, and I start now with. I read now the first one.
It's very. I mean, obviously people are critical of him. Anyone who talks about the future, there's gonna be some people who agree with you, and some people who don't agree. So, very good book recommendations, actually. So, thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
For your time, and a lot of success for your mission. I really love it. I think it's super important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Startup Stories. Make sure to check out the show notes and our blog post with additional links at nerdentrepreneurs.com. And if you like our podcast, leave a review on iTunes. See you next time.